Sarah Chen had always believed that any machine could be fixed with enough ingenuity and duct tape. As chief engineer of the research vessel Odyssey, she'd proven this theory countless times. But now, as alarms blared and the ship's hull groaned under enemy fire, she wondered if she'd finally met her match. Hull breach on Deck C. Reactor efficiency dropping to 60%. The damage control eye's voice remained eerily calm as it listed off what seemed like the Odyssey's death sentence. Sarah's hands flew across the engineering console, rerouting power in sealing compartments. Around her, her engineering team worked with practiced precision, even as the deck plates shuddered beneath their feet. The Meridian Collective had appeared without warning 3 days ago. Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization should have been a moment of celebration. Instead, the crystalline ships had opened fire immediately, their energy weapons tearing through the Odyssey's defensive screens like they weren't even there. "Chief, we've got cascade failures in the primary cooling system." Lieutenant Rivera's voice cracked with tension. "If we don't stabilize it in the next 10 minutes, we're not losing this ship." Sarah cut him off, already moving toward the access tunnel. She grabbed her emergency repair kit, a battered toolbox that had seen her through countless crises. "Keep the secondary systems online." "I'm going in." Captain Marcus's voice crackled over the comm. "Chen, those cooling chambers are flooding with radiation. Even in a suit, you'll have 15 minutes max." "Then I'll fix it in 14, Sarah replied, already sealing her radiation suit. She'd modified it herself, adding extra shielding and a built-in welding array. The other engineers called her paranoid. She called it being prepared. The access tunnel was barely wide enough for her to crawl through. Emergency lights cast everything in a bloody red glow as she made her way toward the cooling chamber. The radiation warning on her HUD climbed steadily higher. Outside, the battle raged. The Odyssey was just a research vessel, but she was humanity's most advanced ship. The Meridians had expected an easy kill. Instead, they'd found themselves in a drawn-out battle with a crew that refused to die. Sarah reached the cooling chamber and immediately saw the problem. The main coolant feed had ruptured, spraying superheated plasma across the backup regulators. It was a killing blow, or should have been. But Sarah Chen didn't believe in killing blows. "Rivera, I need you to dump emergency coolant reserves into Section 47. She called out, already pulling tools from her kit. "And get ready to reroute power through the tertiary systems on my mark." "Chief, the tertiary systems aren't rated for that kind of load." "They are now." Sarah pulled out her tablet, making rapid calculations. "Because we're going to modify them. Send Engineering Team 2 to Junction Box 93. Tell them to bring every superconductor they can find." As she worked, she could feel the ship's wounds through her boots. The Odyssey was dying, but Sarah had learned long ago that death was just another engineering problem waiting to be solved. The Meridian ships watched in confusion as their sensors reported impossible readings. The human vessel should have been destroyed. Instead, its power signatures were stabilizing. Somehow, they were adapting their systems faster than they could be destroyed. Commander Vextor, leader of the Meridian fleet, studied the readings with his crystalline eyes. "Impossible. Their cooling systems are operating at 200% efficiency. The modifications they're making, they're designing new systems in the middle of combat." His second-in-command flickered with uncertainty. "But that defies all protocols. Engineering modifications require extensive testing, simulations. Apparently, no one told the humans that," Vextor replied, watching as the Odyssey's engines flared back to life. Back in the cooling chamber, Sarah finished the last weld. Her suit's radiation warning was screaming, but the jerry-rigged cooling system was holding. She basically rebuilt the entire regulatory system from spare parts in desperation. But it worked. "Power levels stabilizing," Rivera reported, disbelief evident in his voice. "Chief, what did you do down there?" Sarah was already crawling back through the access tunnel, her mind racing with the next dozen repairs needed. "I convinced the laws of physics to take a coffee break." Now get ready. We've got 3 more critical systems that need impossible fixes, and I've got some ideas." The battle continued, but something had changed. The Meridian Collective had come expecting to find primitive beings barely worthy of notice. Instead, they found themselves facing opponents who turned repair bays into weapons factories, who rebuilt their ships even as they burned. In engineering, Sarah Chen wiped sweat from her forehead and reached for another tool. The Odyssey's systems were a mess of jury-rigged repairs and improvised solutions that would have made any proper engineer faint. But they worked. They survived. Because that's what humans did. They took the impossible, broke it down into smaller problems, and fixed it with whatever they had on hand. The galaxy might not have been ready for that kind of chaos, but Sarah knew one thing for certain. They'd better get ready fast. "All right, people," she called out to her team, a fierce grin on her face. "Let's show these aliens what human engineering really looks like." The Meridian ships continued their assault, but now there was hesitation in their attacks. They had come to exterminate what they saw as primitive beings. Instead, they found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. A species that didn't just fight back. They improvised, adapted, and overcame. And Sarah Chen, covered in grease and radiation burns, leading her team from one impossible repair to another, was just getting started. Commander Vexter's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained rage as he watched the human vessel execute another impossible maneuver. The Odyssey's engines were operating at power levels that should have melted their containment fields. Instead, they were dancing through his fleet's formation, their makeshift repairs holding together through sheer audacity. "Another repair team has been detected on their outer hull," his sensor officer reported. "They appear to be installing weapon mounts using modified mining equipment." In the middle of combat, Vexter's crystalline structure vibrated with disbelief, without proper safety protocols or construction facilities. The sensor officer's response was cut short as the Odyssey demonstrated exactly why they'd been installing those weapons. Improvised pulse cannons, crafted from mining lasers and coolant systems, opened fire on the Meridian fleet. The energy signatures were chaotic, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective. Aboard the Odyssey, Sarah Chen was in her element. Her engineering teams had spread throughout the ship, turning every repair bay into an improvised weapon factory. The Meridians had superior technology, but they were bound by their rigid protocols and expectations. Humans had no such limitations. "Power coupling on Cannon 4 is getting unstable," Rivera called out, his hands flying over his console. "We're pushing way past safety limits." Sarah grabbed her toolkit, already moving. "Safety limits are just suggestions with good lawyers behind them. Divert power through the secondary grid. I've got an idea." She reached the weapon mount just as another volley of Meridian fire screamed past. The modified mining laser was indeed on the verge of overload, its hastily assembled components straining against forces they were never designed to handle. But where others saw imminent catastrophic failure, Sarah saw opportunity. "Martinez, get me the plasma conduits from Life Support Section 3. She called into her comm. "We're going to use the overload." "Chief, those conduits are keeping atmosphere in D-Deck. D-Deck's already depressurized. Now they're going to help us survive." Sarah's fingers flew as she began reconstructing the weapon's power system. "Besides, I always wanted to test my theory about using atmospheric regulation systems as pulse amplifiers." The Meridian fleet watched in growing confusion as the human vessel's energy signatures shifted again. Their sensors, designed to detect and analyze known weapon configurations, struggled to make sense of what they were seeing. The humans weren't just repairing their ship. They were evolving it, turning every system into a potential weapon. Vexter's tactical officer flickered urgently. "Commander, their weapons are showing signs of imminent catastrophic failure, but they're intentionally feeding more power into them." "They're what?" Vexter's question was answered as the Odyssey's jerry-rigged weapons opened fire again. This time, the energy pulses rode along cascading system failures, creating a ripple effect that overwhelmed Meridian shields through sheer chaos. Sarah watched with satisfaction as her modified cannons tore through the enemy's defenses. See, sometimes you have to let things break to make them work better. Rivera, start collecting blown power cells. I've got plans for those too. Word of the battle was spreading. Other ships in nearby systems began receiving fragments of sensor data showing a human research vessel holding its own against the mighty Meridian collective. But it wasn't just survival. It was innovation at a pace that defied conventional wisdom. They're not following any known engineering principles. A Meridian analyst reported, their crystalline form clouded with confusion. Every repair they make violates at least 3 fundamental safety protocols. Their solutions shouldn't work. And yet they do, Vextor replied, watching as another of his ships reeled from a hit by weapons that had been mining equipment mere hours ago. They're not thinking like engineers. They're thinking like humans, his second-in-command finished. The word carried new weight now, tinged with something the Meridians had rarely felt: uncertainty. Sarah felt the shift in the battle's momentum. Her teams had transformed the Odyssey from a research vessel into something new, a hybrid of desperate innovation and controlled chaos. Every system had been repurposed, every failure turned into an advantage. The ship's original designers would have been horrified, but Sarah knew better. The best machines were the ones that evolved. Chief, Engineering Team 3 reports they finished converting the waste recycling system into an emergency shield generator, Rivera reported, though they say they had to sacrifice the coffee makers to do it. Sarah laughed. Acceptable losses. Tell them to start on the backup communications array next. I've got some ideas about turning it into a resonance cascade initiator. The battle was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The Meridians had come expecting to find primitive beings bound by their technological limitations. Instead, they found humans. Creatures who saw those limitations as mere suggestions, who treated the impossible as a personal challenge. And as Sarah Chen led her teams in transforming yet another vital system into an impromptu weapon, she knew they were teaching the galaxy a lesson it wouldn't soon forget. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't advanced technology or superior numbers. It was the human ability to look at the impossible and say, "Hold my coffee maker, I've got an idea." News of the battle had spread across nearby star systems like a quantum shockwave. Other species watched in fascination as sensor data showed the ongoing duel between the mighty Meridian fleet and a single human vessel that refused to follow the rules of proper engineering. The Odyssey's hull now bristled with improvised weapons and jerry-rigged systems that defied conventional analysis. Sarah Chen's engineering teams had transformed every deck into a workshop of controlled chaos, where the line between repair and innovation had blurred beyond recognition. "They're adapting again," reported Vextor's tactical officer. "The humans are. They appear to be channeling their shield harmonics through their waste heat exchangers." Vextor's crystalline form flickered with frustration. That's not possible. The energy patterns would be too unstable to. He fell silent as the Odyssey demonstrated exactly how possible it was, their modified shields shrugging off a barrage that should have vaporized them. In the Odyssey's engineering bay, Sarah wiped plasma residue from her face as she studied the readouts. All right, the heat sink shields are holding. Time for Phase 2. Martinez, how's that gravity plating conversion coming? Ready, Chief. Martinez called from his station. Though I still think using artificial gravity generators as weapon amplifiers is crazy. Crazy is just another word for hasn't been proven to work yet. Sarah's fingers danced across her console, redirecting power flows. Besides, if we're going to teach these aliens about human engineering, we might as well go all out. The lesson was spreading. Other species vessels had begun arriving at the edge of the battle zone, drawn by reports of impossible innovations. They watched as the human ship performed repairs that violated every safety protocol in the galaxy, yet somehow worked better than standard procedures. A Tellurian science vessel, its crystalline hull gleaming, moved closer to observe. Their chief researcher, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical shell, recorded everything with increasing amazement. They're not just repairing systems, the researcher transmitted to their homeworld. They're evolving them. Each solution breeds 3 new innovations. It's like watching a technological explosion in real time. Sarah's latest creation was ready. The modified gravity plating now formed a network throughout the ship, creating localized distortion fields that could be weaponized. It was the kind of innovation that would have taken years of testing in normal circumstances. They'd done it in hours. "Rivera, synchronize the gravity pulses with our shield harmonics," she ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you combine impossible things." The result was spectacular. Waves of distorted space-time rippled from the Odyssey, catching Meridian ships in a web of conflicting gravitational forces. Their perfect crystalline formations began to crack under stresses they were never designed to handle. "Impossible," Vextor whispered, watching his fleet's formations dissolve. They turned basic ship systems into weapons that ignore fundamental laws of physics. "Not ignore," his science officer corrected. "Fascination overwhelming protocol. They're exploiting loopholes we never thought to look for. Every failure becomes a new tool. Every limitation becomes an opportunity." The battle had become more than a fight for survival. It was a demonstration of human ingenuity that would reshape galactic engineering standards. Other species vessels began cautiously approaching the Odyssey, not to attack, but to learn. Sarah noticed the growing audience and grinned. "Looks like we're giving the galaxy a crash course in human problem-solving. Rivera, let's make it memorable. Begin Phase 3. Phase 3 involved converting the ship's entire sensor array into what Sarah called a probability disruptor. It was the kind of modification that would have gotten her banned from every engineering association in human space. It also worked perfectly. "Chief," Martinez called out, "we're getting requests for technical data from 3 different species. They want to know how we're achieving these power conversion rates." Sarah laughed. "Tell them the secret ingredient is human stubbornness and a complete disregard for the impossible. Also, coffee. Lots of coffee." The Meridian fleet was in disarray now, their perfectly organized battle plans shattered by innovations they couldn't predict or counter. Vextor watched as his ships struggled against weapons that shouldn't exist, created by engineers who treated the laws of physics like polite suggestions. "Send the withdrawal signal," he ordered, his crystalline form dim with resignation. "We must report this to the collective. The humans, they're not just fighting us. They're changing everything we thought we knew about engineering." As the Meridian ships retreated, the Odyssey stood triumphant, a testament to human ingenuity. Its hull was scared, its systems were held together by improvised repairs and theoretical physics, but it had done more than survive. It had revolutionized space warfare through the power of human creativity. Sarah looked at her exhausted but proud engineering teams. "Good work, everyone. But don't get too comfortable. Now that we got an audience." She gestured to the growing number of alien vessels gathering nearby, their sensors drinking in every detail of the Odyssey's modifications. "I think it's time to really show them what human engineers can do." The galaxy would never be the same. The age of rigid protocols and safe solutions was ending. The storm makers had arrived, and they came armed with duct tape, coffee, and the unshakable belief that anything could be fixed or improved with enough creativity and courage to try the impossible. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. 3 weeks after the initial battle, the space around the Odyssey had become an impromptu engineering conference. Ships from dozens of species hovered nearby, their crews watching in fascination as Sarah Chen and her teams continued to push the boundaries of possible. "The humans are conducting another demonstration," announced the Tellurian observer, their energy form pulsing with excitement. "They appear to be teaching the Arcadian delegation how to convert standard maintenance drones into emergency shield generators." Sarah stood in the Odyssey's main cargo bay, now transformed into an interspecies workshop. Around her, engineers from various species watched intently as she dismantled a maintenance drone, her movements quick and precise. "The trick isn't following the manual," she explained to her diverse audience. "It's understanding why the systems work the way they do, and then imagining how they could work differently." A Meridian engineer, part of a diplomatic delegation sent to understand their recent defeat, raised a crystalline appendage. "But without proper simulations and safety protocols, how can you predict the outcomes?" Sarah smiled. "Sometimes you can't. That's why we start small, learn from the failures, and always keep a fire extinguisher handy." She connected two components that were never meant to interface. "Watch this." The drone hummed to life, generating a localized shield field that rippled with impossible energy patterns. The assembled aliens murmured in appreciation and concern. "It shouldn't work," whispered an Arcadian tech priest. "The power configurations violate three fundamental engineering principles." "Welcome to human engineering," Rivera replied from his station, "where shouldn't work is just the first step to making it work better." The Odyssey had become more than a ship. It was a symbol of a new age in galactic technology. Sarah's innovations during the battle had sparked a revolution in engineering thought. Species that had relied on rigid protocols for millennia were learning to experiment, to improvise, to see limitations as challenges rather than absolutes. But not everyone welcomed this change. Deep in Meridian space, the collective's high command watched with growing alarm as their carefully ordered universe began to unravel. "The humans must be stopped," declared first speaker Xelphos. "Their chaos spreads like a virus. Already, 3 mining colonies have reported unauthorized modifications to their extraction equipment." "Modifications that increased efficiency by 40%, countered another speaker. "Perhaps we should consider abandoning millennia of proven methodology for garage engineering." Xelphos' form pulsed with anger. "No, we will restore order, prepare the Grand Fleet." Back aboard the Odyssey, Sarah felt the shift in the galaxy's political winds. More ships were arriving daily, not all of them friendly. Some came to learn, others to observe, and a growing number seemed to be measuring the human vessel for weaknesses. Chief Martinez called out during another demonstration session. "Long-range sensors are picking up something big. Really big." Sarah looked up from the power converter she was modifying. "How big are we talking?" "The Meridian Grand Fleet big. Hundreds of ships, all heading this way." Martinez paused. "They're not coming to learn, are they?" "Probably not." Sarah stood, brushing off her hands. "But that's okay, because we've been teaching more than just engineering tricks." She turned to address the alien engineers gathered in her cargo bay. "Who's ready to put theory into practice?" The response was immediate. Species that had been ancient enemies found themselves working together, applying human innovation to their own vessels. The Arcadians' energy weapons were merged with Tellurian shield technology. Quantum drives were modified far beyond their original specs. Every ship became a testament to the power of human creativity combined with alien engineering. As the Meridian Grand Fleet approached, they found not a single human vessel, but a combined fleet of species working together in ways that defied traditional tactics. Each ship had been modified with human-inspired innovations, creating a defense force that fought with controlled chaos. "Impossible," Xelphos whispered as the battle began. His perfect formations were met with weapons that shouldn't exist, shields that violated physics, and tactics that no simulation could have predicted. Sarah coordinated from the Odyssey's engineering bay, now linked to every allied ship through a network cobbled together from communication arrays and modified entertainment systems. Remember, she broadcast to her impromptu alliance, "The best solution is usually the one no one else thought was possible." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The Meridian Grand Fleet, pride of the collective, found itself facing ships that transformed damage into weapons, that repaired themselves in ways that defied analysis, that fought with the creative spirit of humanity backed by the combined technological heritage of a dozen species. And at the heart of it all was the Odyssey, still held together by improvised repairs and theoretical physics, showing the galaxy that the future belonged to those who dared to imagine it differently. History would remember it as the battle of impossible innovation, where the rigid order of the Meridian Collective met the chaos of human-inspired engineering. But for Sarah Chen, standing in the Odyssey's transformed engineering bay, it was simply another day of solving problems that shouldn't have solutions. Their primary fleet is attempting to establish a resonance lock on our shield frequencies, reported an Arcadian engineer, their tentacles dancing across a hybrid control interface that Sarah had helped design. "Good," Sarah replied, surprising everyone. "That's exactly what we want them to do." Rivera, initiate Protocol Impossible. Protocol Impossible was perhaps Sarah's masterpiece, a complete violation of every known engineering principle, combining technologies from a dozen species in ways that should have torn reality apart. Instead, it did something far more interesting. As the Meridian fleet attempted to lock onto their targets, they found their own systems being reflected, refracted, and redirected through a maze of improvised technology. Shield harmonics became weapons, weapons became propulsion, and propulsion became something entirely new. By the first light, whispered a Tellurian observer, their energy form flickering with awe. They're not just fighting the Meridians, they're teaching the galaxy to dream. The Meridian Grand Fleet, pride of the collective, found itself facing not just modified ships, but a new philosophy of technology itself. Every vessel in the Allied fleet had been transformed by human innovation, each one a testament to what happened when you combined alien technology with human creativity. First speaker, Caxelphos watched in mounting horror as his perfect formations dissolved into chaos. "This isn't warfare," he protested. "This isn't engineering. This is human." His tactical officer finished, their crystalline form showing traces of admiration. They've turned innovation itself into a weapon, and they've taught others to do the same. The battle reached its crescendo as Sarah unveiled her final innovation. The Odyssey, now more idea than ship, began broadcasting technical data to every vessel in range, friend or foe. Not attack plans or weapon specifications, but something far more dangerous: ideas. "What are you doing?" demanded a Meridian commander over an open channel. "Sharing," Sarah replied simply. "Because that's what humans do. We take ideas, we improve them, and we share them. And now, the galaxy knows how." The effect was immediate and irreversible. Even as they fought, Meridian engineers began questioning their assumptions, seeing possibilities they'd never considered. Other species vessels, already modified with human innovations, began incorporating Meridian technology in ways its creators had never imagined. The Grand Fleet's formation broke, not from defeat but from transformation. Ship by ship, the Meridians found themselves faced with a choice: adapt or become obsolete. In the end, it wasn't weapons that won the day, it was imagination. Weeks later, Sarah stood before the newly formed Galactic Engineering Council, an unprecedented gathering of species united by a common purpose: the pursuit of innovation without bounds. "Humanity has given us more than new technology," declared the Arcadian representative. "They have given us new ways of thinking, of solving problems, of seeing possibilities where we saw only limitations." The Meridian delegate, their crystalline form now showing traces of organic modification, agreed. "We sought to preserve order through rigid adherence to proven methods. The humans showed us that true progress comes from challenging those methods, from daring to imagine different solutions." Sarah looked out at the assembled delegates, former enemies now united in their pursuit of innovation. The Odyssey, still bearing its battle scars and improvised modifications, had become a symbol of this new age. "Engineering isn't about following rules," she told them. "It's about understanding them well enough to know when they need to be broken. Every problem is an opportunity. Every failure is a lesson. And the impossible is just something that hasn't been tried enough times yet." As she spoke, ships across the galaxy were being transformed. Knowledge flowed freely between species, each innovation sparking a dozen more. The rigid hierarchies of the past gave way to a new order based on creativity and collaboration. The humans had done more than win a battle. They had changed the very nature of technological progress. In workshops and laboratories across the galaxy, engineers of all species began approaching problems with new eyes, asking not, "Is this possible?" but rather, "How can we make this work?" And somewhere in deep space, the Odyssey continued its journey, still held together by impossible repairs and theoretical physics, a living testament to humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy: the courage to imagine something better. The impossible engineers had become the teachers of dreams, and the galaxy would never be the same.